Welcome to Eternal Paradigm. Together, we're uncovering human experience by exploring physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual stories. With me, your host, Urmi Raval. Hello, welcome to Eternal Paradigm. I hope you're enjoying your journey to find you. This episode is my 2020 reflections, and also to share with you what's happening in 2021. This has been a very unusual year, and one that I'm really not going to spend too much time focusing on the realities of what has become life for many of us. As I record this, I have just received a message to say that the area that I live in the UK is now moving into Tier 3, which is the government's high alert level. Let's not dwell on that, because I want to take you on a little journey that I've been on. And I hope that you will join me, or humour me at least, on this. I want to rewind back to January 2020. And I sat here and I wrote lots of things in a collection of many notebooks that I have. And I wrote these things at a time where things were incredibly dire for me, mentally, physically, emotionally. And yeah, I want to say I'd hit a wall, but I can't even say I'd hit a wall. What I'd done is I had spent the last 40 odd years of my life running at 180 miles per hour. And when you're kind of at that speed, you don't hit a wall. You don't break it either. And so I literally had stopped in so many ways. But what amazed me is, like many of you probably do, journal and make notes or mental notes. I'm one of these people that makes notes in copious notebooks. I will write down things. I will basically write down things in notebooks, on Post-it notes, on walls. Yes, on walls. On my whiteboard, on my phone, I will have my draft emails. Then I will have notes on my phone. Yeah. And then I also have voice notes. And then I have these other recorded snippets. And so it's everywhere. And then I have Post-it notes on my laptop. So what I'm trying to say is I write a lot of stuff all over the place. And some of you may be like that too. So I want to, like I said, go back to one of my journals that I opened up. And it's got a picture of a butterfly on it, because that's clearly how I was feeling at the time. And, well, that's clearly what I was aspiring to be or feel, I guess. And what amazed me is that in some ways I was just brain dumping, because that's what you do. It's your journal, okay? But then these were the words that I had written down. I had no expectations of what these words meant to me at that point. And I also had no real idea of how that was going to happen. But these are the words I wrote down. And so my reflections have been focused on what the words are and what they actually mean and how they've actually shown up for me. So the words are connection, calm, spiritual growth, creativity, and transformation. At the time, I know how I was feeling. I was incredibly disconnected, not only from myself, but I was disconnected from my life and also where life had taken me, or where I'd actually got to at this point in my life. I kind of see myself as I was a passenger on this little boat out at sea, and it was just me in this open, vast space of everything but nothing. And that was quite an unnerving feeling, but also I had got to a point in my life where I was no longer feeling. And for a human who is designed to think and feel, to not feel anything is actually quite a scary place to be, because that was how disconnected I'd become. There was no direction. And even though in real life, in the real world, I was surrounded by people in daily life, on my commute, in the morning when I'd stop off to grab a coffee while I was heading over to work, even while at home, I'm surrounded by people, out at meetings constantly, but I was still feeling incredibly lonely and unable to truly feel anything. I guess there is a term for it, and I think it's like a high functioning depressive or something like that. But don't quote me. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. But anyway, moving on to where I was then. And if you haven't heard it already, I have an insight, a snapshot into, I think it was one of the first episodes that I did. And I just wanted to put it out there because I know I'm not the only one, but it's been a learning experience for me to realize that at that point, I wasn't the only one. And even at this point, I'm not the only one, and neither are you. Moving on to now, this year, even though it's been harsh in other ways in life, the realities have forced us all, including me, to stop. We've had to take stock, reflect, refocus, and act, or choose to not act. And whatever you've decided works for you is fine, because it's for you. But I'm just letting you know where I was, because these are my reflections. And my reason for sharing them with you is simply because we're so connected in ways that you can't even begin to imagine. I mean, apart from the fact that our human tissue is the same, how our bodies are internally kind of made of all this stuff. Human connection is so natural and normal. And part of the reason that we're becoming so isolated, disconnected, unhappy, and dissatisfied is because that connection, we've allowed it to be taken away from us. And then all of a sudden, the world has ended up in this place, which has forced us. And so that's where that is, I guess. Ultimately, for me, this year has really forced and allowed for real, deep, and meaningful connection to come about. I mean, how has that been possible? Simply because it's what I asked for. Yes, how we physically interact with each other has definitely changed, and there are definitely more virtual connections, but it's taught me that connecting with a being, with a person, actually goes beyond the physical. And when you get hung up, well, in my case at least, when you get hung up on physicality and the form that we've taken on in this life form here, you get stuck because you've just forced yourself you've limited yourself effectively. But that connection, that connecting goes deeper and wider than just a physical presence. I found that, for me at least, taking myself back to certain ages in my life, I felt safe to explore how I felt at these times, and it's really helped me. And one of these kind of explorations resulted in a podcast episode. And that's where my conversation with Aaron Acharya, really stemmed from. And if you haven't listened to that episode, then please head on over. It was a really refreshing conversation to have, and to realize that the limits I'd set on myself were self-imposed, and I was allowing them to be reinforced. It was all me. I was in control of my choice. I was in control of my decisions, but I had pushed everything to the outside. I just wanted to share with you a snippet of one of the questions that Aaron threw out at me. It's fantastic. Have a quick listen to this, and I'll be back just after.
Here's an out there question for you. If a person had their brain copied onto a machine, considering the technology advancements we've got coming, if a person had their brain copied onto a machine and put in a simulation, would that copy in the simulation be a person? Or would it be the same person, or would it be a different person?
So my second point that I'd written down, as I read to you at the beginning, was the word calm. Now, I look back at this now and recall where I was in this loneliness and feeling disconnected, and, with a desperate yearning for calm. Even in silence, there was so much noise, and the noise was hurting me. And this happens to all of us. We just don't stop. And then there are noises and voices, sometimes our own voices, or voices that have been embedded into our subconscious. And what happens is that hurts us. Calmness and stopping life was forced upon us in this current situation. And now I have to say that I have learned through the support I've had from reaching out and accepting that I needed help. The reality is simple. I could not help me. I could not fix me by myself. I needed help to help me become the person who sat in my mind's eye and the being that was stuck beneath all that noise. the being that was trapped. So this is moving on to my next point, which is spiritual growth. So spiritual growth is also on my list, and this part has unveiled itself in a way that I was not expecting. I reached back within me to find that my faith is important to me, but not in the conventional sense of the word as we do through practice. I don't necessarily prescribe to spirituality as the en vogue term that it's become. Spiritual growth showed up to me in the form of kind of fulfillment and purpose. This year has been filled with so much uncertainty, but this is just 1 year for many people. For me, most of my life was a package of uncertainty where I tried too hard every day to survive like me. So when I was doing that, when I was supposedly living in air quotes, I was denying myself the real opportunity to find purpose and meaning, a way to live. But I was looking for this purpose and meaning in places where none of this could give me what I needed. And so I was lucky enough to reach out for that help and to be able to turn within. The outside situation, I guess, the pandemic, don't move, stay where you are, that helped. This year screamed for the world to stop. And it also has put a stop, to some extent, to the world that we lived in. Stopping allowed me to cocoon myself while I worked, I guess, on becoming the butterfly on the front cover of my notebook that I so yearn to be on some level. It has been much needed time to work on connecting with what I feel is my true path and what my true purpose is. The exploration of this showed up in an episode that features my personal, I guess I like to call him my guide and coach, Simon Rogers. If you haven't heard that episode, then I totally recommend you head over for that one. I mean, you get a little insight of what my conversation with Simon would be like. I mean, this is not a coaching session, but I mean, he's been phenomenal in helping me kind of decipher the mess that I had become. That's not to say that I'm no longer a mess, but I'm just tidier about it. And I'm laughing. I'd also written down creativity, and yet this word, through actions, has opened up so much opportunity and enabled connection, spiritual growth, and has brought me closer to the calm I was so calling out for. I hope that each guest story that you have listened to has given you something. The aim of this podcast is to get you thinking about you. What have you learned about yourself? Something that you didn't know, but had a moment where something happened and there was a click. We spend all of our lives trying to be so sure that we know ourselves, or spend our time serving others or serving an outwardly purpose. But where does that leave you? Finally, I had written down the word transformation, and I'm going to leave that with you just to kind of give you an overview of my reflections. And now I'm going to move on to what's in store for 2021, because it's moving forward for me. That really matters. And 2021, again, is going to be packed with many new and exciting stories and experiences from the heroes who live and walk among us. You know them, you are them. And with this in mind, 2021 is the launch of the Transformation series, with topics and experiences lined up where you will hear from some of the most powerful individuals whose compelling stories and experiences will truly awaken your eternal paradigm. There are also Facebook and Instagram live events planned for some helpful, actionable tips, changing and improving your life through the conscious choices that you make. More details about these will be shared on social platforms, so make sure you've connected with me on Facebook and Instagram. Throughout next year, I'll also be bringing you conversations with some incredibly inspiring entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs, and with people who are living conscious values in business and society. So about a year ago, I set out my own ventures, and this has been a really significant time for me, especially in addressing and readdressing the level of heart there truly is in business. So keep an eye out on that. There's more to come. And I'm really pleased to announce that I'm also doing a series on conscious creativity. So creativity as a lived experience is so powerful. And at this point in our human existence, this is such an important energy to connect with. This will be an exploration with creative individuals on topics and also a delving into their stories. Ultimately, I want you to remember that creativity is not just art or poetry in the kind of current form that we know it as. Creativity itself is a lived experience. Your whole body feels it. It nourishes your mind. It changes the way your brain functions. And it really, really makes you light up from inside. On that note, I have to give a huge shout out to the podcast editor for Eternal Paradigm, Maya. And, you know, she's been a phenomenal support and help in all of this. And, you know, each and every guest and every single guest that we've got lined up for you next year as well, who's joined me. And if you are looking to join me for an episode, just reach out. I will be more than happy to explore this with you. Even if you just want to have a conversation about what it may or may not be like, be open to it. It's a new year. It's a new start. What have you got to lose? I cannot forget to thank the listeners for the continued support. Well, clearly by listening and connecting with me with the feedback, the supportive messages and the comments. And for that, I am truly grateful. I am also going to share with you that Eternal Paradigm is listened to in 22 countries. That's 167 global cities. And that's across 5 continents. So we still have to get to all the continents. Make sure you reach out and connect with me, okay? Or if you want to reach out and connect with any of my amazing guests, please look them up or drop me a message and I will be more than happy to connect you. Remember to subscribe. Remember to share episodes with people who you think will benefit from listening. And also keep your comments coming, your feedback coming. If there's something specific that you would like me to explore with you or with someone else, or you know someone who would be amazing to, you know, share their story, please let me know. But for now, I'm going to head off and I'm going to see you in 2021. We still have an episode coming out next week. Definitely keep an ear out for that one, especially if you are starting 2021 wanting to refocus and reevaluate where you are at work. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.